Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's video, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video with your friends. It really helps the channel grow, and I appreciate every single one of you.
In the heart of the 20th century, the Soviet Union embarked on an architectural revolution. Their buildings were more than just structures, they were symbols of ideology, power, and the collective dream of a utopian future. Towering skyscrapers, sprawling housing blocks, and futuristic monuments rose from the ground, each telling a story of ambition and aspiration. But what remains of this legacy today? Join us as we explore the enduring impact of Soviet architecture, from its grand beginnings to its uncertain future. The story of Soviet architecture begins in the 1920s, in the aftermath of the Bolshevik Revolution. The new regime sought to break away from the past, rejecting the ornate styles of the bourgeoisie in favor of something bold and revolutionary. This was the birth of constructivism, a movement that fused art with functionality, creating buildings that were as much about ideology as they were about shelter. Architects like Vladimir Tatlin and Konstantin Melnikov became the pioneers of this new aesthetic. Tatlin's unbuilt tower, a spiraling monument to the Third International, was meant to symbolize the dynamism of the new Soviet state. Meanwhile, Melnikov's own home in Moscow stood as a testament to individuality within a collective society. These early structures were experiments in form and function, designed to inspire and transform. But as the Soviet Union industrialized, architecture took on a new role. Factories, communal housing, and workers' clubs sprang up across the country, each designed to shape the lives of the people who used them. This was architecture as social engineering, a tool to build not just buildings, but a new kind of society. By the 1930s, Soviet architecture had entered a new phase. Under Joseph Stalin, the emphasis shifted from revolutionary experimentation to monumental grandeur. The goal was no longer just to house the masses, but to inspire them, to create a skyline that would proclaim the power and glory of the Soviet Union. This was the era of the Seven Sisters, the towering skyscrapers that still dominate Moscow's skyline. Buildings like Moscow State University and the Hotel Ukraina were designed to awe, their spires reaching toward the heavens as if to claim the future itself. But it wasn't just the scale that was impressive, it was the detail. The Moscow metro, with its chandeliers and marble walls, became a palace for the people, a symbol of the luxury that socialism promised to deliver. Yet behind this grandeur lay a darker reality. These buildings were constructed by laborers working in harsh conditions, often prisoners of the Gulag system. The opulence of Stalinist architecture was built on the backs of those it was meant to inspire. With the death of Stalin in 1953, Soviet architecture underwent another transformation. The new leader, Nikita Khrushchev, denounced the excesses of Stalinist design, calling for a return to practicality. The result was the rise of the khrushchyovka, prefabricated concrete apartment blocks that could be assembled quickly and cheaply. These buildings were a far cry from the grandeur of the Seven Sisters. They were plain, utilitarian, and often cramped, but they served a vital purpose, providing housing for millions of people who had been living in overcrowded communal apartments. For many, these modest flats represented their first taste of privacy and independence. Yet, the khrushchyovka also came to symbolize the contradictions of Soviet life. While they improved living standards, they were also a reminder of the compromises that had to be made. Today, these buildings are being torn down across the former Soviet Union, their legacy a subject of debate. As the Soviet Union entered the 1960s and 1970s, its architecture took on a new boldness. Inspired by the space race and the Cold War, architects began to experiment with futuristic forms and materials. This was the era of brutalism, a style defined by its raw concrete surfaces and geometric shapes. Monuments like the Buzluja monument in Bulgaria and the Palace of Ceremonies in Tbilisi were designed to inspire awe and wonder. They were symbols of a society that saw itself as leading humanity into a new era. Yet, as the Soviet economy began to stagnate, many of these projects were left unfinished or fell into disrepair. Today, these structures stand as haunting reminders of a future that never was. Their decaying walls and empty halls speak of dreams deferred, of a vision that was as ambitious as it was flawed. The fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 marked the end of an era, but not the end of its architecture. Across the former USSR, these buildings remain, their fate a subject of debate. Some, like the Kaliningrad House of Soviets, stand as unfinished relics of a bygone era. Others, like the Vilnius Palace of Concerts and Sports, have been repurposed for new uses. For many, these structures are a painful reminder of the past. But for others, they are a source of fascination and inspiration. Urban explorers and preservationists have begun to document and protect these buildings, arguing that they are an essential part of our shared history. The question remains, what should be done with these structures? Should they be preserved as monuments to a lost era, or should they be torn down to make way for the future? The answer is not simple, but one thing is clear. These buildings are more than just concrete and steel. They are the physical embodiment of a dream, a vision of a world that might have been. As we look back on the legacy of Soviet architecture, we are reminded that buildings are never just buildings. They are stories, stories of ambition, of ideology, of the lives that were lived within their walls. The Soviet Union may be gone, but its architecture endures, a testament to the dreams and contradictions of a society that sought to reshape the world. From the towering spires of Moscow to the crumbling ruins of Buzluja, these structures invite us to reflect on the past and imagine the future. They are reminders that architecture is not just about bricks and mortar. It is about the stories we tell, the lives we live, and the futures we imagine.
And that's a wrap for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more awesome content, and share it with anyone who might love it too. Let me know in the comments what you thought, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay awesome.